dream catchers, and welcome to another exciting day in the Writer's Haven. I am your host, Helena, and in studio with me today is international photographer, author, speaker, and radio host, crazy man, Ken Rochon. Ken is the author of 26 books, and he is the founder of the Keep Smiling campaign. He is best known for his Keep Smiling Shift Happens books, a national movement that honors celebrities and influencers for their ability to create community and smiles because of their positive energy and impact. So much to discuss, so much to unpack. Join me in welcoming my good friend, Ken Rochon, to the Haven.
Well, thank you.
Welcome to the Haven.
And thank you for calling it Ken Hill. I wouldn't have found it otherwise.
Everything Ken, right?
Yeah, everything Ken. And thank you for connecting me here. That's
yes, yes. You are so incredibly funny with that. So, but let's get serious for a minute, just a minute. Everybody can see that you're a funny guy, which I love about you. Just reminiscing on the first day that we met.
Keep smiling is a very serious topic, so let's not take it as a joke.
Well,
okay?
but I love, when we first met and you first told me about this project, I was so excited about you. You ran down all these books that you had done. You showed me the many celebrities that you had taken photos of, who really believed in the movement, as well as, regular Joes like myself. What caused you to create such a great movement in this book series?
Well, I think that's two different questions, because first I wrote a bunch of books.
Yes.
And that was because I had made a promise to myself when I was a youngin', a little yonker.
Right.
And my grandmother was an author, a poet, and my uncle was, and I said, that sounds like a great thing to be. I want to be that too. And some 30 years later, I hadn't been. And my mom was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, dementia first and Alzheimer's. I don't think you get them in the reverse order, by the way.
I don't think so.
Yeah, so when she had Alzheimer's, I had an opportunity to be a caretaker with my dad. And in doing so, you learn and you really think about how precious life is. And at the culmination, unfortunately, of 3 years in her passing, I said, I am doing a book.
Wow.
And I wrote my first book, and it's actually this guy right here. And I will hand it to you.
Thank you very much. And I will show it to our viewing audience.
So it's called Becoming the Perfect Networker, Succeeding One Connection at a Time. And the concept is, in this day and age where everything's so busy, even 10 years ago when I wrote the book, cards are being passed and there's not really that follow-up and there's not really that value that you're giving or that ability to help someone really be a lot more prosperous and abundant. So I wrote a book on how you actually create value and also contribute to someone's life. And the book, if you see here, it came out with almost 100 copies sold.
Awesome.
And that got me on 55 radio shows. And the book was kind of a financial disaster, but what it did was it taught me the value of what a book can do to position you. And so I rewrote it, and it did 5 editions. And I said, you know what? I love doing books, and I started writing more. And then I had people come to me and say, help me with my book. And I realized that so many people want to do a book, but they don't know what they don't know, and they also have a fear aspect of it, like I don't have enough time, I don't have enough money, or whatever, and they don't get the book done. And then the saddest part of all is the people that do get a book done, they think that that's the end of it. And that's the beginning, as you know. That's like training for the Olympics.
Right.
And when you train for the Olympics and you're all ready and you say, okay, I'm done, I'm ready, and then you're not done. You're now at the starting line to actually compete.
It's time to.
So I have a book here that actually addresses that. It's called, there you go, Make a Book, Move a Book, Book a Sale. And many professionals actually want to do a book. 85% say, raise their hand, I want to do a book, I want to do a book. And only 1% do it. And the reason why is they don't know the steps to actually get a book done. And there's some pretty simple ones, but it's actually just write is one of them, obviously. Another thing is think about what cover you want to do so you can be inspired to continue writing and having something that has continuity with what you're actually showing people on the cover.
Okay, so hold on, just so that for our viewers, we kind of have this in some chronological space.
Okay.
So the Keep Smiling campaign happened
A good 3 years later.
a good 3 years later. So you actually started your author's journey about
Big time. 2009.
2009.
Yeah. Yep.
2009, 10 years ago. And it started with your becoming the perfect networker, and you felt this book was necessary because you saw people in situations where they're networking but they weren't very successful in making those connections.
Right.
You felt that you could kind of teach them a thing or two about doing that. And so before it was even in print, you had 100 copies sold.
Well, that's quite a joke.
Which is quite
I didn't have
marketing.
any. I didn't have any.
Okay, I was say, which is quite a marketing strategy. It's like, okay, I'd like to hear about that marketing strategy.
No, it's actually poking fun at the fact that so many people say I have 1 million copies sold
Yeah,
and all that stuff.
okay.
So I was just poking fun at I almost have 100 copies sold. What kind of dent is that making in the world, right? So I had printed 2,000, so to have every one of them to say almost 100 sold is quite... it's an attempt at humor, at least, and it got caught by a lot of radio shows, and they said either this guy
You said
is
55 radio shows,
and they said he was either crazy or he's going to be entertaining at least.
Okay.
So
Both.
I had a lot. Yeah, I had a lot of fun with those shows, and it was just I saw so many people grabbing cards, and they were just in a card frenzy, collecting and put them in databases, but they weren't doing something simple, which is just, hey, V, I have someone I'm going to connect you with tomorrow, and actually do it. And that connection could be someone that changes your show. It could change your life. But so many of us are like, let me talk about me. At the end of a networking event, most people, if they were challenged with remembering 2 or 3 people, that'd be actually quite a feat.
Okay.
And so
okay.
I don't even worry about talking about myself. There's an amazing book called The Go-Giver by Bob Berg, and he basically says, think about what you can give to people. Don't think about what you're going to be selling or what you're going to be getting, a go-getter, you know? So I just worked for a year just helping people connect with people or giving them value in other ways, and next thing I knew, I didn't have to talk about myself anymore. It takes care of itself very nicely.
Okay. Okay. So, we know what compelled you to write the book, but as far as having the tools for writing, and this is all of your work is nonfiction, kind of like self-help.
Right.
And then, of course, there's a movement which we're going to talk about
Sure.
in a minute. But just staying on your first books, and how many books did you do before the Keep Smiling campaign?
A lot, like almost 20.
20 books.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, any formal training in writing, or you just kind of dived in?
My mom had a master's in writing, reading, and history, and my dad was a wordsmith. He was an amazing speechwriter, so I think just being around them, having my dad say my writing was a catastrophe, and learning how to write better and practice. My son's 6 years old, and I'm having him write quotes, actually from a book right here, Powerful Quotes.
Okay.
And
let's show that to our viewers.
Yeah, so that's just a book you have in your pocket to inspire you, and it's interesting that, you know, when a kid at 6 years old is writing quotes, he's actually programming positivity into his brain, and he's learning vocabulary words he may not otherwise know. For instance, it was interesting that he actually pulled up dreams. He opened up the book and said, my first quote is, too many of us are not living our dreams because we're living our fears. Les Brown.
Okay, now I want you to hold that up so that we can make sure that
Okay.
we get that
There you
on
go.
camera.
There we go.
There we go. Okay.
Okay.
Good camera.
And then his second quote, he's supposed to do 100 of them, but his second quote is, reality is wrong, dreams are for real. Tupac Shakur. So
A lot of different influences.
exactly. And
Yeah, which is what good literature is about, you know, and just whether it's literature or it's quotes or just a way of looking at the world.
Right.
I think words in general are very powerful. Very powerful.
see, we're like
Yeah,
on
we're
that
right
power.
there.
And so one of the other things I encourage people when I speak is read a book to the people you love. Because how many of us have this amazing uncle or grandfather or grandmother that tells these amazing stories, and they are just a wealth of information up top, and you're like, please download what you have there, either the stories or the wisdom, right? And so I became a big proponent of making sure that when my son was brought into the world, that I committed that I would write 1 book a year for him, just for him. And so one of the first ones I wrote was a book that I showed you, and I'll hand it to you.
Well, you know what?
Oh,
You
there we go.
hold it up. Okay.
So,
which is very nice. I love
making friends around the world, and it's about teaching kids to be global thinkers. So right out of the gate, I mean, think about a bully. A bully typically bullies someone because they feel inferior, and they feel inferior because they don't have confidence. So take a bully and teach them another language. All of a sudden, they relate to other people. I heard a great quote about Indian discrimination. Travel.
Yeah, see the world.
If you travel
see
and see
those
the world,
other cultures.
yeah, you'll have no problem understanding that we all need to get along, and that acceptance is actually the brilliant way, and smiles is the great way, and the universal expression to say love and happiness and acceptance and peace. So a couple years later, I had a gentleman named Barry Shore hand me a Keep Smiling card. I don't know if I might have one with me. I try and carry them with me. There it is. And here's one for you.
Well, thank you.
So
My second from you.
I have I found this to be the neatest human experiment, that you give that card to someone, especially if it's in a different language. I have 24 languages, so if I meet someone, I find out they speak another language that I have, I give it to them and they light up. And you know how music, when you hear great music, it doesn't matter what area it's from in the world,
Yeah,
you just love it. Well, it's the same thing with the expression of happiness. And so in doing this, I started taking pictures of people because I was blown away by how beautiful their spirit and their soul came up when they smiled. They got in touch with gratitude and love. And so I started seeing people post these photos, like this was their photo they wanted to show the world. And so I had this archive of photos. I made a book called Keep Smiling, Shift Happens. And just like that year of me go giving instead of go getting, I did a year of whenever I thought negatively, I shifted it. And all of a sudden the universe picked that up and said, you know what, you don't want that bad day anymore? Let me move this to a great day, you know? And it's funny when someone says, I'm not having the best day. You know, people say that sometimes. I say, well, don't worry. There's only one best day. And they go, what is it? And I go, I don't know, but there's only one, so don't worry if you're not having the best day. So I've enjoyed taking the photos and turning them into books, because people see people they recognize, or they say, how do I get in this book? And I say, hey, you got to smile and you got to be committed to creating community, and you have to be a leader that leads with their heart. And so the idea of this whole Keep Smiling movement is to eradicate this feeling of despair, first and foremost, and to bring people together. Because if you think about it, who doesn't smile? Even a person who has no teeth, they don't smile. They smile. All of a sudden, you just love them. You love them. So,
how did you get the celebrities on board with the movement?
That was an experiment. I mean, everything I do is just trying it out. And to date, knock on wood, I'm very glad you have wood here and not glass. To date, no one has said no to holding a Keep Smiling card. That's kind of phenomenal, because if you take the bottle of water that you gave me earlier, it has a brand on it. And if I went to a celebrity and said, hey, would you mind holding this water up? It's water. And they see the brand, they go, can't do it, sorry.
Yeah.
And it would be no's, no's, no's. But with Keep Smiling, I simply say, hey, and I only go to people that really are truly creating inspiring smiles in the world. And I say exactly that. I say, you inspire so many smiles in the world. Would you mind if I honor you in a book called Keep Smiling? And they're like, sure, like that. And I mean, Quincy Jones, Bret Michaels, John Travolta, I mean, just all these really cool people. And I know that if I keep meeting more celebrities, they're going to say yes as well. Because if you think about it, those celebrities are successful because of how many smiles they do create.
Yeah.
And if people started thinking, the more abundant I want to be would be equal to the amount of smiles I'm committed to generating or creating in the world. And I think as a scientist that this is a great hypothesis. How many smiles are you creating in your life? And the people that create the most smiles, look at their bank accounts and look at their feeling of abundance. And if you think about a smile is simply saying to the world, I'm good, I'm happy. And it doesn't matter what's in the bank. And money's important, money's energy. But what I'm saying is that if you are actually using your money for good and you have more than you need, you are in a state of abundance, which is going to generate smiles and also inspire more.
Right.
So.
It's a great concept. So, and along those lines, you have different themed books of the Keep Smiling campaign. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, my favorite one is the 17th one, and that is the Bald, Beautiful, and Bold edition. But I just think of the first gentleman, his name is Dr. Sammy Numbisi. Dr. Sammy Numbisi is out of Bethesda, Maryland. He's a dentist, an implantologist, actually. And he's the first one that said, you know what, Ken? I will go ahead and do a Keep Smiling book. And he did one for the DMV. And he told his story, and his practice is called Miles of Smiles. And it just goes to show you the first person, they get accolades forever because they did something no one else did. They said yes, right? So that was my first book. My first edition was called the DMV edition. And it's since become Charm City. And I really want to see Baltimore turn into one of the best cities of love. I mean, it's called Charm. And it's I don't know if you know this, but if you Google, it's #1 or #2 most dangerous city in the United States, depending on what week it is. Yeah. In the global sense, it's #23 most dangerous city in the world, and it's the only U.S. city that's on that list. Oh, goodness. All the rest are from Brazil and Mexico mainly. So if you want to really, live life with some adventure, go to Brazil and Mexico. But they out of the 25, they own like 20-something of the cities that are the highest deaths per capita. And so my feeling is two parts. One, the more smiles a city is actually generating, the safer the city is. and the more relationships will be caused by that. And if you think about it, if you have relationships, you have a hard time feeling like you're lonely. You have a hard time feeling like you're mad at the world, or you're even mad at one person. I mean, you hear people say, I don't like this kind of person, or that. Like, if you had that person save your child's life, all of a sudden things shift.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's what I think the Smile movement's about. It's about having a conversation about what can we do together to actually create abundance.
Okay, so is the campaign as impactful as you had hoped, or is it still growing? Like, what is the current status of it?
Well, all of the above. It is definitely not as impactful as I thought it would be, because I thought it would be bigger. But it's way bigger than I thought it'd be because of the unknowns that happened. For instance, I didn't know when I'd hand it to celebrities that it would be accepted. But I haven't had a celebrity actually go on Twitter or something and say, this is what I love. You got to go to the Keep Smiling movement and get this floodgate of traffic yet. So I haven't gotten that. But I have had some huge names decide they're going to write Keep Smiling books. So a Keep Smiling book is about your journey of creating who you are. Now think about that. So if you're in a bad area of a city, like Baltimore, for instance, and you had to go through so much stuff, and you survived so much stuff, you might actually have a tougher who and a better who for creating a purpose in life. Because that's a resilient person. And I would rather hire someone who's resilient and has grit to get to the end. And you think about it, the football players that get the most touchdowns, they're probably people that had to go through a lot of stuff. And so the journey, in my opinion, defines the who that they are, which the higher the who, I believe, creates the higher why, your purpose. And the higher why is, I also believe that there's an integrity issue, an integrity component that causes your how you actually create impact, how you create abundance, how you solve problems, how you inspire hope. We give the ebooks for free at this point. We may shift it at some point to $1, because if you think about it, $1 to download a million people, you got a movement that's actually generating money. And the whole idea of the movement is the first part I already told you, connectivity, love, hope, that's one. And the second part is that we want to pay photographers, videographers, people that are committed to the media that gives good messages. So that's nonprofits. And most photographers, they're happy to donate their time, but they're not happy to pay for their parking. They're not happy to pay the expenses of the day. So you give a photographer $25 to $100, believe it or not, you have their attention. And they're like, sure, I'd be happy to help you. And so we want to fund that type of army of 150 to 300 photographers around the United States to go to these nonprofits and give them an aid, give them help. And then the third part, which is my most exciting part, is take the money that you're getting from the nonprofits, I mean not the nonprofits, but the Keep Smiling movement, and take 10%, just 10%, and give it to local kids that have deformed smiles or have been in abusive relationships in their family, and give them that confidence of what a smile does. And I've seen in the dental practice, you know, people come in and they're all messed up there, and they get to smile and all of a sudden they're a person. So
it can really change
that's
your
the last
outlook.
part of it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So tell us, first of all, what came first, the writing or the photography?
Photography.
The photography came first.
Yeah, when I was in the Army, I used to play around with black and white, go into the black room and make all the pictures come to life. And it was my artistic outlet, because I was an artist. I went through medical illustration and even went to Johns Hopkins to part of the program. And I didn't have an outlet for art, so I actually picked up a camera and started showing off what I could do. And I think it's so cool when you see beauty and humanity, that you're able to capture it. I've been called a spirit capturer, and I think it's a cool compliment. People are very happy, or I capture that moment of their happiness.
You know, Kim, we're talking about your books, but I definitely want you to know that, at least from where I sit, and I'm sure others agree, that you are a very, very creative person when it comes to your artistry and photography, because the way that you catch moments, I mean, you just took a few pictures of me, and I think I was setting up for an interview when I first met you, and then when you sent them to me, I was like, oh my gosh, I mean, you caught my good sides. But at the same time, it was, first of all, I didn't even know you were taking most of those pictures, but you're just very, very talented in that way, but you really downplay that part.
I do, because I don't want to, if you're known as a photographer, it's not that it's a bad word or a bad status, it's just, I want to be an artist. I want to be a leader. And those two speak to inspiration. And the photographers I've met, love them, but they're passive, and they're there to capture. They don't want to be the spotlight.
Yeah, yeah.
And I love to show off photographers when I'm at events, because I want them to know I'm their friend and that I want to market them. Because if I was a photographer, technically I may find that they're competition, and I don't want them to think I'm a photographer, because I want to help them. And I did this book that I'm committed. I'm going to give it to you, or okay. So it's called The Art of Life. And it's 100 of my best photos in 10 years. And any book that's been shown here, I'm happy to send it to a viewer completely. I can send them to you, and you send them to whoever. But these ebooks are to inspire people to write. They're to inspire people to be creative. And I actually want photographers to take their best work.
So when you say inspire people to write, what do you mean by that directly?
Well, they have it here and here, but the outlet of it. And I think once they get it out in the world.
So the images will inspire them to actually put pen to paper? Is that what you mean?
Well, I think the photographers, it's really the photos would be for the photo books, and then other people just to write. And, and it is, I found that if you design a cover and spend a little bit of money, $250 to $500 to hire a real graphic artist to do a cover, you got skin in the game, and you're probably going to end up really increasing your odds of doing a great book. So that's my trick.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So what advice would you give to someone who is interested in bringing a social message, which is what I consider the Keep Smiling movement to be, is a social message to make people aware of the gift of smiling, because it really is a gift. When just think of all the people that we see, we smile to, and they don't smile back to us. I mean, it's, you know, it happens often.
You think so?
It does. I'm actually very...
So when you smile at someone, you're saying they don't smile back to you?
Yeah.
Wow.
Sometimes I don't get the smile back. And you know, and what I've told myself is, okay, they're probably not even though it looks like they're looking at me, they're probably not even there. There's something going on here that they're focused on.
Sure.
So I don't take it personally, but I am
I would
amazed
take it personally.
I am amazed at how often it happens, to be honest with you, because I do believe in the power of smiling, and I know that it can actually change the course of a conversation.
Totally.
You know, you could be speaking to someone and their energy may be confrontational, but when you smile, it does turn
I think I know what your problem
and
is.
change. What's my
Because we're having a
problem?
different experience.
Okay.
So what I do that is totally changed is I say, and let's say I don't know who you are, I say, excuse me, I'm about to throw a smile your way, so are you ready?
Okay,
I'm
well,
kidding.
I definitely don't do that. I'm talking about complete strangers.
I get it, and you know, maybe it's because I'm in events that there's kind of a filter that everyone paid to get there. So my experience is totally different. So I'm not, maybe I'm not working with.
So you're saying that you smile to people and they always
almost every
smile
time,
back.
almost every. But when you're paying to be at an event or you're committed to be at an event, it's personal development. Come on.
I'm just talking about you at the gas station, and you're. Oh well, you're.
Yeah,
you
I'm
got a
just.
different
Yeah.
kind of car because you have to plug your car in.
I'm antisocial.
That's why you got that car. But let's say you're grocery shopping.
Right.
And you see someone and you smile and they'll smile back to you.
Yeah, so I don't.
That's what you're saying.
I guess I don't
most
practice it
often
as
your
often in that experiment or experience.
Okay.
I'm going to get 2 or 3 things, and I'm out. Now, if I'm at the
you're not
cashier,
looking
now
at
cashier big time though, because I want to make their day.
Right.
Because they're working.
Yeah.
And they may not be getting a lot of smiles. No, they thank me. Like, and the other thing is, remember, I got some weapons. The Keep Smiling card.
Yes.
So when I give that Keep Smiling card to a cashier, lights them up.
Okay.
And then I say the magic words. I say, I'm gonna be throwing a smile at you. No, I'm just kidding.
So what's next?
I think seeing where this Keep Smiling movement goes, I would love to get into more, I don't want to say celebrity, influencer events, because I think that this behind the right people, we're going to have a movement that actually is taken a lot more seriously. A lot of people have seen the Keep Smiling movement, so that part's cool. But I want it to be something that people say, you know what, maybe I do only smile 40 times a day if I practice smiling. And by the way, the reason you're doing 40 times a day is because you've programmed yourself to go that low. Isn't that crazy?
Unconsciously.
Yes, but unfortunately, mostly unconsciously.
So
mostly unconsciously.
those are the smiles that I don't get back from the adults
Exactly.
when I smile at them.
This addresses that.
They have met their 40 cap, and so by the time they get to me, they're not doing it.
Well, this is my first book. I did research.
Okay.
So I've written 25 books, just downloading my heart. This book here actually talks about smiling, something you practice, and it's a crazy thing, but You know, if your brain says you're happy, what do?
You
Smile. That makes sense.
Or laugh.
Laugh, right? And that makes sense because that's program. Your brain says you're happy, muscles cause smile, and smile happens. Okay, but here's what's wild. You're not happy, okay? You smile, as in you practice. The brain actually says, you're smiling, you must be happy. And the brain goes happy.
Oh, it happens that way.
Yes, it does.
So you've done scientific research, and this is what you found to be true.
Totally, and think about this. Smile, with the exception of some of your situations with strangers, okay?
People hate
I don't know what's happening there. I don't think so. But I do think that there's something to look at. They're like, what is it? Because I think that when you smile and you cause someone else to smile, it's actually generating energy that is recyclable.
Absolutely.
And so,
it's definitely an energy that's passing between two people.
You know what? I'm going to give you some cards, and I want to see and hear from you later that you give someone a card and you keep smiling.
I'm not
you smile.
as brave as you.
Oh, you're very brave.
No, I'm not. I mean, I believe it or not, I'm a bit of an introvert. Many people find that very, very strange when it comes to me. So
I never even talked to a person until I met you. When I met you, I hadn't even said a word to anybody.
You mean at that event? Just at that event?
Yeah, maybe.
Well, you have a very jovial personality. So.
I love people.
So what message would you like to give for a person who is looking to impact the world as you have with your movement?
And let's define world as the world that they deem it to be. It could be their neighborhood, it could be their city, it could be their state. So I think the message I am really most adamant about is that you are more powerful than you think you are, and that step up, be a leader, and see what kind of impact you can have in the world. And there's 3 things to measure. 1 is how many smiles might create in the world. 2, who are the 100 people? Who are the 100 people that are above you and below you? In other words, the people that are mentors of you, that inspire you to go up. And who are the ones below you that support you and push you up, right? And the 3rd question is, what's your journey? How are you defining your who and your why and your how? And if you don't like it. Write a new one and be it. That's the part. I don't think people realize that life is a blank book, and you get to create what you want.
Thank you so much for being on the show, Ken. It was a pleasure having you. And Dreamcatchers, thanks for joining us today. And I hope you learned a lot about storytelling and using your voice and passion through imagery. If you've been tuning in, you know we have a number of authors, songwriters, filmmakers, and playwrights joining us here in the Haven. And there are many, many of your favorites coming up, so stay tuned. Check our website for more information at www.writershavenshow.com, and you will also find streaming information for iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, YouTube, Sonos, Alexa, and other platforms, including the American Legacy Network. That's all for now, and until next time, catch fire on purpose.